So my name is Dmitrii. I am a crowd solution architect at Toloka. I design and implement data labeling projects on our crowdsourcing platform. And today I want to talk about the search relevance use case for e-commerce and share some insights on how to set up the project. So what is search relevance? To put it simple, you have a query, you have some possible result, and you're trying to evaluate how relevant the result is to the query. Particularly in e-commerce, it is used to improve search page results, ads shown to the user, and make accessories suggested for some particular product more relevant. The same data might be used in different ways. For example, you might want to use this data to train your search algorithm. After that, you might want to use it for quality assurance as a health metric, or you possibly may conduct an A/B experiment, running some sample queries on a prototype internally, and then test it on actual real crowd without deploying an application anywhere. So every labeling project starts with an instruction for the performer. Some general advices that are applicable for any project are that instruction should be easy readable by a person with no relevant background. The short instruction, the better. It should clarify possible edge cases, and it should provide enough examples for each class. But speaking about search relevance specifically, I have noticed the thing that first thing that comes to your mind when you set up a project, that the task itself is actually quite simple. You have just a query, some buying intent from a user, and you have a result. It's either relevant or not, right? So exact match and the relevant are the easiest classes to understand. But then you realize that if a query is very, very specific, there might be no suitable exact matching products in your marketplace or in the world at all. So you still want to show something relevant for that query, and you're trying to build some amount of possible results that are not exact match but relevant. And then you remember that the labeling would be done by humans, and we can rely on the actual human opinion, and it results in a question that sounds like, please evaluate on the scale from 1 to 5, how likely would it be for you to buy the presented product if you were searching for something using this query? In our experience, it leads only to more confusion and to some dirty data with this scale. So I want to say that scale is bad. Some clearly defined categories are much better. Ideally, they will not intersect with each other. For example, possible categories might be an exact match for the product that matches the search query, or possible replace if it's something that might be purchased instead of what user was searching for at the beginning. We can also put a separate category for accessories that are actually completely different products, but they are still somehow relevant for the original search query, and a class for everything that is not relevant at all. And speaking of these categories, there is another useful hint, is to decompose the query on some defined tokens. For example, in one of the projects, we use the following decomposition. The query consists of a product class, a product itself, some of the product features like brand or model or color, and the additional category for critical product feature. I will explain the criticalness just now. And the extra question to be asked when evaluating any particular query or product is this an accessory or not? This decomposition, for example, let's run through examples first. Women's M size summer dress. So dress is a product itself, and summer is a feature, but it's marked as just a feature because if you will replace summer dress with an evening dress, this might still be a buy for a user, and this product might be still relevant for them. But M size is a critical product feature. If you change it, if it will not correlate to the original query, and it would be, let's say, XXL size, it makes the same dress completely irrelevant for the original buyer. Or for example, PC racing video game. By the way, it's an accessory. It's not a standalone product. It cannot be used by itself. It requires some equipment to use it, so it makes it an accessory. The racing is just a feature. So person might be interested in a video game of any other genre. This decomposition enables usage of some strictly defined rules, like if the class is different, then the product is irrelevant. But if the class is different and the result is an accessory, then it might go to a separate category. Or if the feature is different from the original query, but the feature is simple, then the product is probably replaced. But the critical feature is different, makes the product irrelevant. Some possible additional rules you might use in your project are, for example, +1 -1 rule is very useful when working with critical product features like the same size. If you are looking for an M size shirt and you are suggested an L size shirt, it still might be relevant. It's very usual, very common situation to look for adjacent sizes. But if it will have difference of 2 categories or more, then it will make a product completely irrelevant. This is an easy way to share this information to the performer in the instruction using such rules. Another rule might be about bundles. Let's say a person is looking for a table or coffee machine. Yeah. If somebody is looking for coffee machine and they are suggested a bundle of coffee machine and a pack of coffee, then it's still quite relevant. But if they were searching for a pack of coffee and suggested the exact same bundle, it will be irrelevant because nobody will want to pay extra for the coffee machine when they were looking only for a pack of coffee. Or speaking of accessories, some accessory features might become critical. Well, some features that are by default not critical might become critical for accessories. Let's use the second example, PC racing video game. So imagine someone is looking for a PlayStation gaming console and they are suggested to buy a Nintendo gaming console instead. I find it still a possible replace because someone is looking for a console and they are suggested just another one, just another brand. But if someone is looking for PlayStation video game and they are suggested Nintendo console video game, it makes the suggestion completely relevant for them because they don't have necessary equipment to run that one. So having so well-defined rules will, of course, make it easier to judge, but the more rules you have, the more bulky instruction you have will become, which contradicts with another rule of making a short and easily readable instruction. One way to approach to this is to decompose your project into several small ones, having a small instruction, some simpler question, and running a series of projects to get to the final categorization. But it will result in multiple projects and multiple labels. The other way to approach this is to have an educational project. It's a separate project, and it uses it as a gateway to the main one, which means that first user will pass through the education and then get access to the main labeling project. And it consists of training tasks. But those tasks are not the same as would be used in the labeling itself. It's just as depicted some small chapter from your big instruction highlighting some particular concept with a few quiz-like questions in the end. And it's divided into several chapters, speaking technically on several training tasks, which breaks up long instruction into chapters and makes it much more easily digestible by a performer and makes it interactive with all those questions and hints. So the recall on the instruction concepts is much better when instruction is made as an education project. So the next step would be to set up an interface. And Some usual guidelines are not to have any unnecessary stuff that might attract performers' attention. Just use whatever is necessary, like here is the query, here is the product, here are classes to pick from. But there is also a button to search query somewhere. It might be Google, it might be your marketplace. It's quite useful because not every query is easily understandable for performer. Some queries might refer to maybe franchises, famous TV shows that the performer might not be familiar with. And it really helps to understand the context of the query and to understand the original buyer's intention. And you want to present the product itself in some way. And there are a couple of possible variants, a couple of possible options. One is to just add a link to your product page. And actually, it requires much less efforts to prepare comparing to the screenshot of the product detail page. It's just add the link and that's it. And also it has a pro of providing a full information on the product. Like if you want to evaluate something with a very big product detail page, you might want to scroll it, or there might be some widgets where you should check some value from the drop-down list, like pick a color or select the size. And it might be an important part to evaluate the relevancy of this product for original query. But screenshot has its pros as well. First of all, it reduces the amount of redirects. So if all of the info is presented right here in front of you on the picture, then you might label the task much quicker. This will save time for the performer. And also it preserves the task. So some link might break and will lead to the products that are not on the marketplace anymore. But having the pair of screenshot and the label, you can recreate the same anytime you want. And even half a year after the labeling itself, you can still use those pair of screenshot and label to train yet another model or for any other purpose you might use it for. So it's something to pick from with pros and cons. Moving forward to the quality control. One of the ways to increase the overall quality of labeling is to use overlap. Overlap is the number of performers who should complete each task in the pool, so you will gather several opinions on each task. First of all, I suggest to use overlap because the task itself is pretty subjective and relies on human opinion. So it's much better to gather several votes and then calculate a label out of that. But since the complexity of task it has higher variance of complexity, some tasks are very easy. Like if something is completely irrelevant, it's clear for everyone. Or if it's an exact match for your search query, it's also clear for everyone. But more intermediate categories are not so easy to determine. So some tasks are considered pretty complex. That's why dynamic overlap is good. You may collect only a few answers from the performer, but increase that amount if the current label quality after aggregation is not high enough for your some sort of threshold. So this will allow you to get some additional answers from performers. And just a small piece of advice, usually when setting up an overlap, people tend to select 3 as a base value because it's very easy to calculate the majority vote out of 3 votes. But I want to suggest to start at 2, because if those first 2 responses would be similar, the third one will basically change nothing. And if the confidence is high enough, then you just saved a bit of money, not labeling for the third time. The second way to control the overall quality of labeling projects is using control tasks or honeypots. Those are the tasks with the correct answer specified in before with so-called ground truth. And they are used to check the quality of particular performer to determine bad ones and not allow them to contribute anymore. But control tasks demand some amount of management and preparation. And there are common mistakes working with control tasks. Like if they are too complicated, it will result in a very low performer count, a very low amount of users who can bypass them due to their complexity. So it's better to use something with very defined label that is understandable by most of the audience. If you will have too few control tasks, if it will put a limit on the amount of task suites that performers can run, at least on Toloka, because task suites are composed of some amount of actual working tasks and some amount of control tasks. And if you will run out of control tasks for particular performer, they will not be able to contribute anymore. So it's better to have well, some moderate amount of control tasks, not too few. Also, it's important to have even class distribution among those control tasks, because if you will have majority of your control tasks with the correct answer of a single class, you will place a mistakenly high skill for the performers who lean towards that class, even mistakenly. Because if, let's say, an extreme example, 80% of your control tasks of your honeypots are for a class of exact match, and you have some sort of bot who always chooses the exact match, they will have an 80% accuracy on your control tasks due to uneven class distribution. So it's better to have even. And it's also a mistake to use old control tasks or reuse them multiple times, because it leads to some broken, expired links, not actual product pages. So it's better to refresh them. And sometimes honeypots might be solved by performers and abused to cheat on the overall process. So managing control tasks is quite a hassle, and how we did it on our project. On the left, you can see the training, exam, and working pool as a regular pipeline for the labeling project, some sort of user journey from top to bottom. And we, from time to time, perform an audit on the labeled data, picking some sample, let's say 5%, and labeling it with experts or internal crowd or whatever is more appropriate for you. And since, well, on itself, audit is done to control the quality of labeling project. So that's it. But you can reuse the tasks that was labeled by an expert, store it in something called golden set database, and then pick control tasks from there on demand with a class distribution that you desire. And for control tasks, you may add some hints and transform them into the training tasks. Yep. So summarizing what I have said, in order to set up the successful search relevance project, define your class as smart, make instruction comprehensive but easily understandable, provide only valuable info in the interface, and keep your control tasks precise and fresh. Or as an alternative solution, I want to mention something just recently added to our platform is, well, we encapsulated all of the experience we got so far with the search relevance, and we are providing a black box solution specifically for search relevance, just an app where you, well, it's not so flexible to tweak and to control, but it's very extremely easy to use. All you need is to define your classes that you want to use for labeling, provide some examples for these classes. And then it's just a matter of uploading data, waiting a bit, and getting your labels, and just repeat the last steps however many times you want. It's a great way to just jump in and test the platform, and got some preliminary labels as a starting point. before the further customization of your search relevance project. That's it. Thank you for your attention.